Good morning, fifth grade. It's Miss Kaplan again. We're going to continue our poetry unit, mini lesson 5, entitled Poets as Architects. Readers of poetry understand how poems are structured differently to build meaning. We will examine poetic structural elements and determine how these elements help build meaning. Last week, we looked at stanzas in poems, which is one element of the structure of poems. Today, we're going to examine different structural elements of poetry. We are going to read some poems and analyze how the structure of the poems helps build meaning for us as readers of poetry. A poem's structure is like the architecture of a building. As architects pay attention to the number of stories a building has and the placement of doors and windows, poets pay attention to elements of poetic structure: lines, line breaks, stanzas, and the use of space. As readers of poetry, it is important that we consider how these structural elements contribute to the overall meaning of the poem. Our anchor chart today is entitled How Structure Creates Meaning. And you will see on the anchor chart that it talks about the structural elements that we just listed. So as you read a poem, you're going to write down the title and you're going to list any structural elements that you see. Then you're going to include how the structure creates meaning in the poem. The first poem that we are going to look at is called Happiness Poem. Watch as I read Happiness Poem and make observations about the elements of structure. This afternoon I came home to find Miss Edna dancing with the broom swishing across the floor, and Miss Edna got a tight hold on its blue handle and singing along with the radio. She's kind of soft shoeing the poor broom back and forth across the kitchen floor like her mind is gone. That's what I'm thinking, praying, please, Lord, don't let Miss Edna's mind be gone, 'cause I was just getting used to living here. Please, Lord. Me and her don't always get along, but she's all I got right now. When Miss Edna turns to me with the biggest smile I've seen in a long time and says, "My Rodney's coming for Easter. My Rodney is bringing himself on home for a while." Then she's swishing off again with me just standing there feeling the relief lift me up and set me right back down in Miss Edna's kitchen again. Okay, these are some things that I've noticed about this poem. The first thing I notice are the lines and where they break. These lines are rather long and they break at unexpected times. I also notice there are no stanzas. There is very little white space on the page. The poem takes up a great deal of the page, so it is my only focus, and I'm not distracted by anything else. I'm going to add these structural elements to the graphic organizer. Now I'm going to take a closer look. Now I'm going to step back and consider, what effect do these structural elements that I just listed have on the meaning of the poem? The long lines, lack of stanzas, and lack of white space make me read the poem just one long thought. It just goes on. There's a sense of urgency or importance about reading to the end. The lack of punctuation just makes me flow from one sentence to the other until I get to the end of the poem. Okay, as we wrap this up, as readers of poetry, we understand that structural elements create meaning in poems we read. We will continue to pay attention to these elements as we move forward in our study. So now it's your turn. Now that you've listened to me as I talk through my thinking about meaning behind structural elements, you're ready to think about structure on your own. You're going to read the poem The Other Me, and that comes from Swimming Upstream Middle School Poems. As you read the poem, think about the structural elements and the meaning that these elements create. Okay, Your assignment today is going to be to identify and record those structural elements that you see, and then communicate how those structural elements actually helped you with the overall meaning of the poem. You're going to find your assignment, Poets as Architects, in the Google Classroom on the shared document. Make sure you write your responses, complete all the tasks that are listed in the Google Classroom, and submit your assignment by the end of today. Okay, fifth graders, enjoy